Hello, and welcome to the New Milford Independent Candidates Podcast, where you are going to get to meet and get to know the new faces of this year's 2025 municipal election. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Hillary Ram back to our chair. My name is Ashley Russo, if you're wondering. And this is our second shooting, right?
Yes.
So we talked a lot about some really awesome topics. Before, we covered water, we covered land use, we covered zoning. We covered, what else did we cover?
Riverfront.
The Riverfront project. We covered our platform, a little bit about our stories, and at that time, the whole unaffiliated thing. So we have a lot that we want to dive into this time, including that.
Yes.
Where our status is right now is we're working through the quagmire that is the political system.
Of how we get on the ballot.
Oh my gosh, it's been quite a journey. It's like very enlightening. But yeah, so how has it been going? It's been wild in our town over the past couple of months. It's like, whoo.
Yeah, there's a lot of drama right now.
There's a lot of drama right now. Yeah. So, hot topic number one, our budget.
The budget. Yeah. It's so funny because I was preparing to come and talk about, the budget because it's on everybody's mind right now.
Right.
And I was at my computer yesterday morning early. My dog still wakes up at 5:15 on weekends, doesn't know it's Saturday, so I was up alone at my desk, quiet house. And I was like trying to get into all the numbers and crunch the numbers and have like really, good things to say. And I couldn't do it. I was thinking about like the dirty floor in the kitchen and the dishes and the piles of laundry. And so I just was like, you know what, Hillary, go do that stuff, right? So I got up and I was like doing all the things around my house that drive me crazy. Like I was, putting the oil on the wooden spoons and the cutting boards. And when I was doing it, I had kind of a breakthrough thing, which is the budget is almost like you can think of the budget of your house, right? And what I had to do was get my house in order before I could sit down and like think, I really had to go through those steps. And I feel like the budget in New Milford, we're in such a mess right now as a town, and everybody's feeling it. There's chaos a little bit around it, which we can get into. But I feel like our house is not in order, and so there's a lot of messy, unnecessary hurt happening around the budget.
Yeah.
So I think that happened for a reason. It was just like an aha thing. And
put it into context.
Yeah, put it into context. And so the reason it's a mess is because the Board of Education, the budget's made up of, should we talk a little bit about what the budget,
yeah, please.
What
like
the budget is and what it's made up of and,
Yeah, go. Yeah, absolutely.
So the budget, I think what everybody should be asking themselves right now is this question. And first of all, you need to get the information, which is even challenging, the way that this leadership team does it. But if you have the information, you should be asking yourself, does Mayor Bass's budget work for me, right? The budget is made up of two parts, which is the town side and the Board of Education side.
Okay.
And they are, the mayor presents the budget in a presentation meeting, and he did that. And this year it was about a 5% increase to our mill rate. We can talk about what a mill rate is and all that too, but he presented a budget that was about a 5% increase to the mill rate.
Is that an average increase?
No, that's very high.
Okay.
So immediately there was a lot of blowback. And the reason it was 5% that he presented was that the state of Connecticut changed the way they do the vehicle tax. So they were trying to lower the vehicle tax for everybody across the state equally.
Okay.
So what they did is they changed the metric or the rubric of how they, give your car a value. So they changed that whole system. And they also decided, instead of being able to tax your car at 90% of the value of that car, they could only tax it at 80%. So it was going to lower everybody's vehicle tax by a lot. So this means that there was less revenue. So the budget is made up of two things, revenue and expenditures. So it's just like your house. It's what is my salary, that's revenue, what are we bringing in money-wise, and then all your expenses, what's your mortgage, what's your, So those are the two parts of the budget. So by changing the vehicle tax, it lowered the revenue by quite a lot. So the mayor said this is a big problem, Now, this was a problem across the statewide. A lot of towns struggled with that. How are we going to make up that difference? So the state legislature made a quick change and said you can cut that in half. Now, in my mind, it's sort of
cut that in half, meaning 85% as opposed to
so the town council voted on that, and they voted yes, let's do that. So then there was that more revenue coming in. Okay. But at the end of the day, that's still taxpayer money. You're not being taxed on your property, you're being taxed, on your vehicle more. So it doesn't, it's just sort of pushing it into a different bucket. However, that then changed his mill rate percentage up. So I think it was then about like 3.5% increase at that point. So town council also they made one cut to the Board of Ed. They took two cuts, small cuts from the town side, and they took $300,000 from the Board of Education.
Right, which really upset a lot of people right off the bat.
Right off the bat, the $300,000 was not great, but I think I heard a lot of people saying we can work with that, So that went from town council, and then it goes to Board of Finance. And Board of Finance is where they had a very big surprise outcome. A member of Board of Finance made a motion to cut the Board of Education part of the budget by 1.6 something.
Million.
Yeah, 1.6 million, right? So, and it passed. So if you add that with the 300, you can say that the Board of Education budget was cut by $2 million. Now, in their presentation, so the Board of Education does a whole entire presentation of their budget before it even gets to the mayor. And it was very clear that it was a responsible budget where their obligations, they have contractual obligations, meaning there's no wiggle room there. They have to pay what is contractually obligated. It was only a 0.5% increase over those contractual obligations. So it was a very responsible budget with very little wiggle room. So that happened. And now there's a lot of very upset people, and there's, calls and a movement to, vote no on the budget, which we should talk about, that, there's a town-wide referendum on every budget where every person can go out and vote on the budget. And so there's a big call for people to vote no too low, is what people are saying, is what the slogan is, no too low for the Board of Ed. And I personally feel like the town, slipped away, because I had been calling for them to cut the budget, but on the town side, because
before this even happened,
I went and spoke to the town council and said there's plenty of fat to trim out of this budget. We have very high surpluses every year, like $5 million, and those get spent, which we should talk about also, but those get spent, so there is room in the town side budget to cut, and that did not happen.
Where does that lie? Do we know?
I mean, I think that this gets into sort of like the philosophical side of doing a budget, which I think is important, because I think we're missing some of that right now. I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts and read books on doing municipal budgets, and I'm just learning it. I can't
read books on doing municipal budget. Well, I guess you have to, because you're sitting in that seat. Well, but wow.
When I was on town council, I came to it and I didn't know even what questions to ask.
Right.
I got there and I sort of, I just didn't. I wanted to be. I wanted to understand. Because this is us.
Yeah.
So, and my point is that what I've heard. My favorite thing that I heard about a budget is a moral document. It's what we're spending our money on. you got to ask yourselves, what do we care about? And that's where we should be spending our money, right? So it's not just take what we had last year, put 2% on it, and put it out there again. That's how it's done right now.
Okay.
I believe that, I mean, you can be very extreme and say, you know, I can't remember which president, it doesn't matter, but I think it was Carter. It was basically you can zero it out and start over every time, which I think is not what we would do. But you could think of it as, you know, every single thing that we're doing, we should be challenged every year. Meaning,
yeah,
what, you know,
how did that work?
What did we put into it?
Did that do well? Right.
And what was the outcome?
Right. Reflection.
So
art. It's the art of assess, recommend, track. It's one of the pillars of my functional medicine practice.
Yeah.
Like, you have to assess the situation, you have to make adjustments, and then you have to track it, and then you reassess, and then you make new recommendations, and that should be followed every year. Somebody actually in our group said something about, on the budget, there's not a line item or there's not a column for how much of the percentage was actually spent the year before, which I thought was mind-blowing. Like, we're giving you money line items for this department. How much of that money did that department actually spend? Was there any left over? Like, how did it work? That's a huge part that's like missing, because you're supposed to be able to track this stuff down to the penny, and like, where does it go? It's like, it's not easy. Look at the book you have in your hand. It's like,
exactly. And actually, this is a budget book, right? And every member of town council and, you know, Board of Finance gets one of these.
Show it to the cameras, yeah.
So this was when I was on town council, and I personally think that every resident should have one of these if they want it. Because
if they want it, yeah.
If they want it, they should, you know, I don't know if you have to pay for it or whatever, but it is, you know, literally what we're spending every dollar on. And, you know, I think that,
because online it's hard to see.
And even if it were, you know, summarized very clearly by the mayor, and, you know, he does do some things. He highlights the things that are going up. So in his presentation, he highlighted the departments that are going up and sort of gives an explanation, and you can listen to their budget presentations. But for the most part, it's the same line item just happening again and again and again, instead of looking at, you know, for example, let's look at, you know, road safety, right? So you can say, you know, we spent $500,000 on extra police presence on the roads to get them safer, right? So that we have less accidents. So, you know, we then want to know before the budget, what was the outcome?
Right. How
did that
go?
work? You know,
right.
But we don't hear that, and we don't hear about, you know, what are the priorities of our town in making this budget? What is our North Star?
Right.
What are we working towards?
Like clean water.
Like clean water.
For the love of Pete's sake.
Like better schools. Like,
right.
You know, whatever the things are, but it's just 2% slapped onto last year, which I don't find that to be
effective.
A fiscally responsible way
No.
of spending people's money. And we spend a lot of people's money. We spend a lot of money. So, and the surplus is a perfect example, you know. Yeah.
So the town side, cutting the town side. All right, now over to the school side. There's so much.
Well, so to say what it actually is, because I think there's been so much back and forth about where we actually are right now. So our mill rate is going up 2.45%.
Explain what a mill rate is.
So the mill rate is the number where you'll multiply your the value of your house, right? So I can't do it off the top of my head, but it's the number that will tell you how much your taxes are going to be.
Okay.
Based on the valuation of your house.
Okay.
So that is, you want to keep your mill rate, you know, you don't want that mill rate to go up, and it means your taxes are going way, way up. So
2.what%?
So right now it's going to go up from 29.77 to 30.5. So our mill rate will be, if this passes, 30.5, and that's up 2.45% from last.
I'm curious where that falls in like the state of Connecticut in terms of everybody else's mill rates. I want to look that up.
Yeah, it's not crazy high. It's just that we've had year after year after year of increases.
Is that normal? That every year there's going to be some sort of an increase? I mean, it makes sense with cost of living.
Inflation, you can say, right, costs have gone up. So yeah, the rate of inflation, maybe it goes up. However, I did look around at some other towns and they have not had increases. And particularly...
Okay, so that is a thing, too.
Right. So some of our towns, like Danbury, has gone down.
So, and we've gone up 5%?
No, so we're going up 2.4.
No, but, okay.
So let's see, the year before we went up, I think it was a 4% increase the prior year.
Oh, wow.
And prior to that, so when Bass took office, I think it was he kept the mill rate was going up 1% pretty much every year. So now it's going up bigger numbers. It's going up by a lot each year. So I do think we need to reboot. We need to figure out how much debt has been increased. We now have a $70 million in debt. So in order to service that debt, we have to pay $6 million every year just to service the debt. And then we bond more every year to pay for what we're doing. So this past year we bonded about $2.5 million to pay for our roads.
Loans,
just
basically.
Our roads. Yeah, they're loans.
Okay.
So that's adding on to the $70 million that we have. I mean, I personally think your goal, just as if you're running your house, is you're only spending what you're taking in, right? You don't want to keep kicking the can down the road and asking our children to pay more debt, and it's going to catch up to us, and it's starting to, because that number can grow quite quickly. It's different if some of those things are creating more revenue,
right? Of course.
So it's there's a term for it. It's a rate of ratio between revenue and debt, but I don't have it. I've never heard the mayor tell us what ours is. But I don't think there have been huge revenue generating things that have happened. Like, we're spending money on roads and bridges, which is infrastructure, which is really important, but it's not like a big sports field that then brings in a lot of money and people, right, and da da da. So I do think that we're just kind of whack-a-moling right now. We're trying to fix the roads and kind of make a plan for that, but again, it's like there isn't a
you totally said that last time too. Yeah, I like the whack-a-mole analogy because I totally like that, right. Okay, but wait, why? Like, what's the underlying why?
And that's what this cut to the Board of Ed feels like. Feels like there was pressure to cut the budget overall, and this was how to get that. This was the hit, and what are the consequences going to be? You talk to the teachers who are getting cut. That is ouch.
Yeah, there
are residents.
Pink slips.
Yeah.
I saw a post from a teacher that said there was like 60 to 80 pink slips ready to go out just because of this cut if we don't vote it down like already. And then you had said that you had read something else?
I read a similar thing from a teacher who was saying it was the first pink slip I've ever gotten. Now, I have not spoken to the superintendent. I cannot verify. These are, Facebook posts. But I would assume, because I'm a teacher and I've signed my contract for next year, I would assume if that was not being honored, that I would be told now, So I believe that they're telling people if they're not going to honor their contracts. It's going to be devastating. I'm not saying that there isn't a need to analyze every penny that the Board of Ed is spending and find maybe, efficiencies, or what are we missing that we're overspending on, or is there a better way to do this, that, or the other? But that's like a conversation to happen long before we get to the table where they literally just cut $2 million from it, because, as I said, that increase was 0.5% over their contractual obligations. So of course, now they're going to have to cut positions. So it means it's going to be really tough.
I can't. And what's their reasoning because of the lower population? What does that look like?
The motion that was made was introduced by saying that over the course of a certain number of years, the population, the enrolled students have decreased. So this year, I think there are about 30 students fewer.
Across the board from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade.
In total. And it costs, what, $19,000 to one child is about I mean, so that's, what is that, about a little more than $500,000?
I've heard 16 and 19, yeah.
So $2 million is, that doesn't balance just with losing 30 kids. And that's a projection. We have a lot of new developments going in.
Yeah.
We don't know, actually.
Who's going to be families, who's bringing children in.
One family could bring 4 kids, one family could bring 3, and we're almost to the 30.
Because then September comes around, you have 50 new children than you expected because you did build all these developments.
Right.
Now you're you're cutting the budget anyways. I think my biggest heartache with this whole thing is zooming out for a second and looking at the demographic of like human health and all of that component, and then bringing it in through the special education lens. The amount of people that are talking on Facebook in the groups and asking questions about how do I get an IEP, or I need to get a PPT, or I need to talk to this person, or I think my kid's dyslexic, or I think this, because the internet has been informing people for so long. 1 in 5 people have dyslexia. Girls more than boys, and all of the other special needs components like autism and all of these really significant learning issues that require a lot of money and that require outplacement or that require specialized attention, all require finances. And the number of children that are coming in right now, I think in New Milford, the last time I looked at the numbers, it was like 17% of the population had some sort of IEP or special needs identification of some sort. I don't know of that how many are outplaced, which I know at this moment in time, that funding comes from the state, not necessarily directly our budget, but I think that the transportation part may be a line item in our budget. I know that I've heard like the number 600,000 just to send these children out of the school district and send them to other schools. Anyways, my point is that right now it's 1 in 36 children have some sort of a form of an autism diagnosis. And by the year 2036, it's supposed to be like 1 in 5 children have an autism diagnosis, or 1 in 3. I lied, 1 in 3. And depending on the severity of the spectrum that they're on, the more severe it requires 2 neurotypical people to care for a neurospicy, neurodiverse person. And without having forethought and building in infrastructure, and we need more support for our school. Yes, fine. If we don't need the staff, that's fine, but don't take that funding from the school. You need to siphon and put it somewhere else and shore up the infrastructure there, because we have an epidemic that is very slowly creeping up right now. And if you don't have the funding to be able to support that, the system's going to collapse greatly. Like, what does the future of an industrialized America look like in 5 years or 20 years when we're handing society over to the next generations to follow if they have had not fully supported school education? It's like really terrifying. It's actually very terrifying, because that's a real reality. And without, the amount of money that it takes to outplace a student is, I want to say close to 100,000. And I'll say this because I have an outplaced child through the school system, and I am so grateful because she can now read. New Milford wasn't able to do that with her with the teachers that they had. So we had to go that route, and now thank God she's able to read, and she's doing amazing because she's in a school that's built for her brain. I call it like Hogwarts because it's like just so specialized, and these kids are actually doing amazing. But if you take that away and you put these children back into a mainstream classroom, they're going to get lost, and the teachers don't have the ability to teach them. They can't connect with them the way that they need to be connected and supported. And I'm terrified because it's a lot of kids, and the special ed in our school is a lot of kids. And when you are cutting teachers and you are cutting money and you are cutting funds, you are cutting your legs off.
Yep.
your nose off to spite your face, or whatever that saying is. It's like, it's tragic. And it's like that the school's strength is directly related to and upholds the housing in your town. If you don't have a strong school, you're not going to have the ability to have strong housing, because people aren't going to want to move to a place that doesn't invest in the education in the proper way. It doesn't seem like, to your point, it seems very mechanical, and it doesn't seem very intentional at all. Like, I feel like there needs to be a hard and fast timeout across the board with a lot that we're doing right now, and just be like, okay, well, has anybody actually stuck their brain in, like, how could this work better? How could this work better? Because it needs to shift to kind of match where we are as a society. The old ways are not working, and they're dying. And to bring up something that you had said the last time, which I thought was brilliant, was about your book. Something about things being complex, and what was the other word? Complex and complicated and complex and something, and I don't know. And one breaks because it's mechanical. Yeah. And if you pay attention to the holistic complexity of the other one, you can work it, and it can excel and grow.
That's right.
And that's what we have here. It's an ecosystem. It needs to be fed properly. Right. That's all.
I totally agree. And your experience is so important. And I think there's so many people feeling stressed right now. Like
the amount of mothers that I see asking questions about that, and they're in the beginning of this. It's like
there's already a question of federal dollars coming in. Right. Is it going to come in to pay for some of this? And then now there's this cut. And so right now we have like a lot of hurt and a lot of, unknowns and a lot of fear, and it doesn't feel like somebody's got the whole picture.
No, right.
And it's a big problem. So I completely, I really appreciate hearing all that story about your child, because I think it's what's going on out there, and that's why there's so much chatter on Facebook, and even in the the halls of the schools. And the thing, as a teacher, I hear this from all of my colleagues, and I haven't been a teacher for decades, so I keep asking people, because our biggest challenge is classroom management. It's just harder to get kids to behave, and if you have one or two kids, and got 22 in the room, if you have one or two that are outside of what is of the expectations, it just can crumble the whole room. And across the board, it's just that kids need more right now, and I don't know if we're still on a post-COVID thing, or if it's like you're saying, it's just a brain chemistry stuff.
It's post-COVID, it's brain chemistry, it's hormones. Like the stuff that's in our water is affecting our hormones, our endocrine system. The stuff that's in our food is affecting our gut and our brain. Like, so much of the human being that sets it up functionally is being morphed without our ability to control that.
Right.
And until you do start to wake up and recognize that, and then take your control back, that's another story. But there's always going to be a large subset of the population that doesn't know that. So how do we, again, steer the ship safely without, taking things away from people, but just education and how are we going to do this
and it's
better and cleaner?
And people are using the old way of looking at things, like, we've decreased the number of students in that classroom, therefore, we can nix the class and make it 25 kids in the other two class, so lose a whole class, instead of understanding the reality of today is that actually teachers, it's not working. That is not working. So, you can't, obviously money, it's the bottom line is money, but you can't keep ignoring what is happening. Right. So you have to pivot. You have to understand where you're spending your money in this budget and where it can push. I do not think the Board of Education is a place.
I don't think it should be. I think it should be maybe restructured, given the huge special needs component of it. That is a societal issue, so that needs to be incorporated. We're going to talk about farming in a little bit, and that's actually, in my head, a large, easy solution, part of the solution to the components of that. But I think that we
And
need
we're
to
not
stay
alone.
far away from the Board of Education budget.
And we're not alone either. So, like to our point of zoning when we talked last time, we're not alone in this struggle, in the fact that kids need more and there are fewer dollars, right? So, how are other towns managing this? How, what are the tools that we could use that we're not using? So I think that some really experienced and insightful people need to weigh in on this and help, find new directions and how we can do it, but do it that it satisfies the teachers and the children, and, do more for less, or whatever the expression is. But.
Yeah, I mean, even, creating some sort of a Hogwarts school in New Milford. I'm going to just, because that's funny, but the amount of money that gets spent on one child.
Right.
So like I said, we had gone kind of across this whole side of the state looking at these therapeutic schools. And my child is she's not severe in her disability. Her dyslexia and all of that is, but her autism diagnosis is very mild, so it's not like it even has to be an intense school. Like, it's just a basic school. They don't have horse therapy or anything like that. Like, we're not talking that. But the schools are all close to $100,000 more. Like, you're not going under that at all. And that's not to mention like the transportation that's needed for these kids. And again, my heart is forever. I cry regularly in my PBTs because I am just blown away that this is available to people, and it's amazing because it gives so many children a functioning brain and an education. But wait a second, because the other side to this is that the school that my child goes to is over an hour and a half away without traffic. So now she's in the car at least 3 hours a day, and she's 12, and she has to get up at 5 because her car comes at 6. Mm-hmm. So that component's not, can we just bring it closer?
Right.
Because this is not going to be going away.
Do you know if that's ever
No,
been
I think it's, no, but hey, man, get me in, because it'll be a conversation. Because that's real. The amount of money we're spending to send them out, which is necessary right now. Can we educate teachers that want to move in this direction? Because so many teachers see old system broken. What do we need to do to formulate a new system, a more holistic approach? And how do we do that? Let's get the teachers educated in different modalities. And then, what are we doing with the East Street School? What are we doing with John Pettibone? Can we create some sort of a place here where we have the ability to send the kids that don't need the intensive, the behavioral or the safety situations, those, that's fine. But these kind of, children that just have...
learn differently.
Yeah, that just learn differently. Man, I would have not had the grades I had in school had that been available, because it just unlocks their brains, and then they're able to oh my gosh, I could cry right now.
Right. Well, these are the conversations that we need to have that I haven't heard happening. I mean, they're probably happening all over the the buildings of our schools.
Now
the
they're
superintendent,
happening.
But they need the public. You know what I mean? And I want to hear from parents out there. I want to hear from teachers and parents, and this has to be kind of turned around and talked about even more, don't you think?
Right. Oh, I would love that. I would love that, to get momentum around something like this, because we all need to come together in this. It's such a big... I think that if we had a town meeting and we asked people to raise their hands and who's got a special needs child, it would be overwhelming, just to some degree. I mean, everybody's on this beautiful spectrum of humanity. So... but just to support people, because we're in America, and that should be the case.
Right.
It should be the case.
Shouldn't feel like such a huge struggle
for
your kid to get.
Because there's always a surplus too. Why are we not dynamically seeking out how can we shore up the infrastructure here and make our future stronger? Where does the surplus go from the budget? Because on the town side, again, it's wild that there's two different sides of the budget. One is so big that it encompasses the entire town, and then the other is so big that it encompasses the entire school system. That blew my mind when I learned that alone. But why are we not supporting this one with extra money here? Because that's clear, they're directly tied to how well we do as a town.
Yeah.
Like, where does the surplus go?
And it's really unfortunate too. Like, I never could. I haven't gotten to the bottom of it either. But I don't understand the great animosity between the two. Like, I just don't get it. I don't. It's not helpful. It doesn't. It just.
I think there's
every year you just during these budget deliberations, it's very much you see how much. Discord there is between the Board of Ed and the town side, and it doesn't have to be that way, and it shouldn't be that way. I mean, first of all, the town owns all the buildings.
Right.
So there's a lot of like back and forth about all that, like with East Street, and a lot of finger pointing and blame, and again, it's poor planning and mismanagement and not thinking ahead, So I think that is a huge problem. And it's just, really bad energy out there. So how can you find efficiencies and work together when you're like, in two totally separate worlds? So I think that's a big problem. And I think that both have surplus. So the Board of Education has some surplus, and the town will have surplus. The Board of Education surplus is always a much smaller, number percentage-wise. Like, if they have $2 million left over versus compared to their total budget's a very small percentage, whereas the town, has been having large surpluses, like $5 to $7 million surpluses on a $40 million, so it's like 5% of their budget is in the surplus. So it's often spent on new equipment, fire trucks, police cars, a drone, the remote control lawnmower. So it's really like equipment for...
Who gets to drive that? That sounds fun.
It drives itself.
Oh, it's an auto. Oh, I get it. Oh, I think I saw one of those recently. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
It's, it's kind of one of those head scratchers in my mind. But anyway, so the mayor decides. So when I was on town council...
Oh, like independently he can decide?
Yeah, it's pretty much a town council meeting, and he says where it's going to go, and then there's a public vote. I think in the last year I was on town council, I was the one person in the room who was like saying, who voted against it. It was $7 million of surplus that year, and it was very high inflation at that point. I was saying we should wait. It should go back to the taxpayers because it's been a really rough year. It was 23, so it was kind of just out of COVID. Everybody was kind of getting back on their feet. And I said this should either be put away for the rainy day, or it should be sent in a check back to taxpayers because they need it. It's not our money to spend on new, equipment for departments that just received $8 million in ARPA funding. Right. So the bulk of the ARPA funding went exactly to that kind of thing, which was new equipment for the fire department.
And
I'm
again,
not saying
ARPA
that
funding was what again?
That was for COVID. It's COVID relief, American relief
to
funds.
shore up infrastructure in your town.
It was to remedy any of the bad effects of COVID. So it was really to help people recover from COVID. So we did spend a good portion of it on some of those things. So anyway, the town side had an influx of money of $8 million, and then we had a surplus of $7 million. And I was saying, the taxpayer needs some of that money back. So anyway, that they voted. So the surplus is yes, it's basically decided by the mayor, and then it's a vote at town council, and then it's a public meeting where they take a show of hands vote. I'm not quite sure how that works. If enough people showed up, would they actually say no?
So it's
I don't
not
know.
like
I've never seen it.
Voter machines.
It doesn't go to a referendum.
Okay, so that's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, that's the difference. Got it.
The only referendum is on the budget, and the point is, if you have a surplus, I don't think you should be allowed to spend it on all these just whimsical things like new trucks or lawnmowers. I think that it should go into the next budget, and then voters can vote on it, right? Because you're basically spending other people's money, all the residents' money, on things that they have not approved with the surplus. Spending the surplus. That's what you're doing. So I don't believe in that. Now, you could say something like in the beginning of the budget, and the voters would approve it. If there's a surplus, 50% of it will go here. We'll put this toward, you could lay
So
it out.
water machines in every household. Right?
I mean, you could lay out what you're allowed to do with the surplus. So then everybody's in agreement that then come surplus, you can say, 20% of that surplus can go to capital improvements, But just to do it, I mean, we have the type of government, it's called the strong mayor. That's what our town government is. It's called a strong mayor type government. We don't have a manager and
different than like a selectman or something like that. Okay, right, because other towns do. So what does that mean? So he's kind of at the top and then has a council underneath him that advises him.
Well, the town council votes on everything, but he'll present it, and it's sort of like he's the CEO of the. There's one boss, right? So the budget is on him.
Okay.
Right? So I think
he creates it. He comes up with it.
It's his budget, and
does he do that with other departments out? Well, yes, because they set up their own PowerPoint presentations and things like that. So okay, I understand. Wow. So that's how the budget's done.
Every department head probably gives him a request.
Okay.
And I don't know the backroom conversations that happen or how that gets
sure,
chiseled
there's
out.
Fun ones.
But they then present their request publicly, and then it goes through that process of town council, board of finance, referendum, where the people get to vote. So we backtracked a little there, but I think it's all, it's all related, as we've been saying. It's all interconnected, right? The schools and the budget and what our priorities are and where we're going, which kind of leads me to want to talk about farming, because I feel like agriculture.
I wanted to, yes, I agree, but I wanted to throw the trial in there real quick.
Oh, right.
Because that was like kind of a little big bomb that was dropped either right before the budget or right in the middle of the budget. And now it's a big factor in the budget because, again, something that they've had years of knowledge about, that this was coming down the pike and there is going to be a judgment on the town of New Milford. I'm sure maybe they didn't see that coming or the potential that. But no, they've been in court. They've been suing us for a long time now. So you had to have expected that this was coming.
We knew
and
it
there was
coming.
no planning.
Yeah.
Again, and then that falls on us.
So it's the verdict came where the two men who were New Milford residents who were convicted of a murder, and they went to jail, and they spent 30 years in jail, and that was overturned. So on new evidence that the investigator, federal, state level prosecutor had done something wrong. So that was overturned. So they sued the state of Connecticut and they won something like $25 million, I think. And then they were also allowed to sue the town of New Milford because that's where the arrest took place.
And something with our detectives.
And the New Milford police were involved. So one of the men decided to settle, and he settled for like $2.4 million, and they were allowed to either take the settlement or go to court and fight for more. So the other one went to court, and that is what just came down. So the first verdict was like 2 or 3 years ago,
okay,
where they won against Connecticut. So at that point, we knew that we had potential. We were going to definitely have to pay one of them $2.5 million, and there was going to be potentially a lawsuit of more.
Right.
It was going to, at the minimum, would be 2.5 or more. So at that point, there definitely should have been conversation about this with the public about that this is happening. We're going to put, $2 million away every year because we don't know what the outcome is going to be. That
or
did not
out
happen.
Of the surplus. My goodness.
Out of the whole surplus could have. So now he won for $5 million or 5.4 anyway, somewhere like that. So now it's about $8 million that we're getting hit with.
Okay.
So that's going to come out of the general the rainy day fund, but that's our tax dollars.
Right.
So I don't know what that does to affect our credit rating, because if that drops to a certain level, that does change our credit rating, and the mayor's very proud of his improved credit rating, which is great. So we have a AAA, is it called, credit rating, which changed under Mayor Bass,
and that has something to do with
it's how much you'll pay. It's kind of the
for the bonds.
It's how much you'll pay, and the arrangement that happens. It's a good thing to be
because the
AAA.
higher the rating, the less like interest or something, or the less.
It's the less interest, but it's a better arrangement.
Okay.
But the thing that's important to remember about that is, I think that it's great to have it for what we have now, and when we do need to bond something, and if we want to do a big, huge project somewhere. But I think that we don't want to be bonding more, right? So it is like, yes, it's great, but we should really be analyzing, we have $70 million in debt right now. I really think we need to stop bonding. That's like the last resort that you go to, unless you are putting forward an entire project that's going to be a revenue producer. So yeah, that lawsuit was a big hit, and I think people didn't really understand what was happening and what is it going to mean, and that also wasn't communicated very well.
Right.
As far as the whole picture, where are we going to take it from? What's it going to do to the rating, if anything? And so yeah, another kind of mismanaged situation.
And then the last thing that I kind of wanted to talk about with this is the voting again. And we vote on a budget yearly.
Yes.
Okay.
Every May.
And that directly affects your bills for the next year.
That is where you're approving the budget, which the mill rate is the outcome of
which
that.
Directly affects how much money stays in your checking account.
Your taxes.
Okay. So in the past, the voting numbers have been absolutely dismal, like
going down,
embarrassingly low. It's like nobody really knows enough to understand that it's a cause and effect thing and that they have direct connection to it. And I guess that's what the hope of, going about social media the way that we plan on going about social media is the education component. Like, no, New Milford, like we really are stronger together, and we can take this whole thing back and shift the whole reality or the trajectory or the paradigm, what we're seeing, the way that we're living, what we're living in, and the construct of that. We have the ability to move that based on how people vote. And every vote counts. Like, I have heard that my whole life, but have only applied it to national politics, which it feels like you're just a drop in the ocean. So like, really, how does my vote count? Fine. But in a municipality, when the numbers are low in terms of who actually comes out to vote, like, no, your vote does count. And, looking at it from more of like a physics or a holistic perspective, New Milford is a microcosm of the macrocosm that is the United States. So, shifting to a more attentional approach in New Milford, and then the surrounding towns are kind of doing the same thing. There's very much a huge movement right now to kind of like, wait, pause. How are we doing this? Because it's a really broken system, and people are very much waking up to that, and people are growing and asking more questions, and that's a really cool thing. And I said before, you can't fix a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. You have to rise higher. So if we stay at this level, we're going to break, and it's going to crumble, and we're going to lose New Milford. It's going to turn into Norwalk. It's inevitable. You see it in the types of buildings that they're building right now, which is fine. If I want to go down into some city type of more urban environment, that's wonderful for those places. But this is the country, and it's close and intimate, and
the decrease in the number of people that vote on the referendum is troubling. And so when you go in and vote, you can vote yes or no to each of the budgets. You can vote yes, so you vote yes or no on the town budget, and then you can say too high or too low. Yes or no on the BOE, the Board of Education budget, too high or too low.
You have all of those options.
Yes.
That's brilliant. Yes. Okay, cool.
So that's data that they'll have. So your vote is crucial, because that is the data that will help them move the budget one way or the other. And I cannot say it enough of how important. And it's a sign it's a sign of health of a town, of a government. If people are not engaged, if they're not voting, engagement means voting. You're a sick community, because people whether they're too busy and they don't have time, we should make time. We should make it easier to vote. Or is it they don't know the issues, so why bother? They should know the issues. How do we get the issues to the people? You know what I mean? Every reason for not voting should be addressed.
And in this town, they make it very easy to not vote because of the disconnection that we have. We talked last time about the emails and the weather and the traffic and all of those alerts like that. When that's all you see, it's like, oh, that's all that's going on in my town. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, smiley face and go on about your day. But if you're getting updates like, oh, wait, guys, like, we have a big budget coming up. And not that that's not getting out on social media, because it totally is. But all of the other things, like the public votes. What are they voting on in a room? Just asking for a raise of hands, and then that's it. Like, that's a really kind of important thing that maybe some more people would want to be engaged in. So put it out there on social media, or put it out there in an email form and inform the public and get input. And that's the part that's missing, the interconnected transparency part.
Mm-hmm. And even like putting the voting signs out. One year that didn't happen. I was like, I don't see the voting signs out, the referendum signs. So that was interesting.
You said that on town council? Mm-hmm. You were the black sheep.
It was a mistake, I guess, that had been made. But
okay.
The signs went out soon after. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, come on. We got to let people know when it's happening. And, every single meeting should be, instead of the weather and the car accidents,
Right. This is what's actually going on in your town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
All right, you want to move into farming now?
Sure. That's because I can't remember why I jumped into it, but it's sort of, I think
the sustainability piece.
in thinking about the budget, and thinking about zeroing out a budget, and starting from scratch, right? That whole concept that I was sort of thinking about. Every 10 years, I think you have to do the POCD, or is it 5? I think it's every 10.
Every 10.
So the town does a POCD, which is a plan
of conservation and development.
Thank you. That is literally polling your population for what they want. Like, you have it right there.
Right. We talked about that last time because I remembered when I was sitting here, I remember filling that out. Right. And I was like, this is some really amazing stuff that they're asking.
Yes. And our town spoke. And our town said, what's important to us is, our water, our farms, being an agricultural town with that heritage and creating that. So I think that there hasn't been, I don't think the right or the left, like the Dems or the Republicans, have really supported the farmers in this town. And what would it look like for New Milford to be, groundbreaking.
Ooh, girl.
Becoming,
That sounds so cool. Yeah. Because we totally have the ability to be. We do. So unique. We have more farmland in this town than any other place in Connecticut. And that's brilliant. And geez, I don't even know where to start this level. Honestly, they don't know how to offer the farmers help because they themselves, again, it's going back to, you can't fix a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. You have this whole level of reality that we've had for years and years and years and years and years. Industrialized society and chemicals make things better, and we're going to streamline things, and we're going to make monocrops fields, which is, like growing one crop for acres and acres and acres and acres. And we've developed this industrialized way to farm, but what it has actually directly done is created the chronic disease, the mental health epidemic, all of these crazy epidemics that we're having right now on Earth everywhere. And it's directly related to how we farm, the health of our soil, and the food that we're eating. Take processed food out of this equation altogether, because that's not actually food. It's food-like substances that have been made to sensorily please you. Actual food that's grown in soil gets its nutrition from the soil, from the microbiome, from the microbes that live inside the soil, that make the vitamins, that take the carbon out of the air and turn it into all of this yumminess that gets sucked up into the plants that you then eat, that then goes into your system, that gets broken down by your beautiful microbiome because you have more bacterial DNA in your body than you do human DNA. You are more walking microbes than you are a walking human being. And their only job on earth is to keep you healthy. They make your vitamins. They make things accessible for your cells. They break down your food. Like when you eat, you're actually feeding them and they're breaking the food down for you amongst mechanical processes that happen in your body. But they're the ones that are releasing all of that and making, beautiful neurochemicals inside your gut. We know this now. This is the lens that functional medicine looks at. This is the lens that all holistic medicine across the ages have looked at. This is ancient. And the problem right now is that we have grown up, my generation, your generation, we have grown up in an industrialized society that relies on chemicals to help our systems go across, and they have demolished the soil. They've demolished the soil. We don't have healthy soil anymore. We have dirt, and dirt is dead. Soil is alive and living. You can pick up soil and you can see all of these little things. I think it's in one handful of soil, there's more microbes in that soil than human beings have ever walked the planet. Like, the amount of a life that's in a tiny little bit of soil is literally mind-blowing. You can't fathom it. It's like understanding where the end of the universe is. Like, it's just not a concept you can wrap your head around. And we're so interdependent on that. The fastest way to shift somebody's personal level of consciousness, the fastest way to turn somebody's brain on in a greater capacity is through food. So anyways, my whole point is that nobody can offer farmers a solution because they're not bringing it through that lens. That is the lens that needs to be brought to farmers in order to help uplift farmers to their rightful place. Like, they wanted to be farmers so that they could get their hands in the dirt and feed people like in the most primal way that we can. Like, this is what we're given, and it's so abundant. And do you know what? One seed could give you a whole forest. Like, I could preach on this topic for hours and hours. And I've taken this information to the town before, specifically because we have beautiful farms in this town, and a lot of them utilize chemical farming, which is where they're at right now, and that's totally fine. But like, let's bring the education and hold their hands and say, like, do you know how critical you are to all of human health? Do you know how much you are the gatekeeper for life here on earth? Like, your job is such a holy one as a farmer. Like, honestly, if you want to look at it through that lens, I love that, because like, you are a walking angel. Like, that's it. And to be able to say human health is in your hands. So what do you need in order to get your reality to shift so that you can see it like this? And then let's talk about getting your food into our schools. And then let's talk about how do we do that? And how do we really explain to people, like, we have a health crisis here. Human beings are not supposed to be dying of chronic diseases at age 70. It's not actually a natural part of life. Life is supposed to be about thriving and living out your mission and your purpose. And everybody here on earth has got one, whether or not you're aware of it or not. And you're not supposed to be bogged down by having to deal with chronic diseases and sickness and illnesses and all of these crazy things that we're bombarded with, and the autisms and all of the things, because we're so full of toxins. And my last thing is, like, you can't control so much of that. You can't control what's in your water. If you go out to a restaurant, you can't control all of that type of stuff. So let's control what we can control right now. And let's shift what we can shift. And we have to start. We have to start. Otherwise, we're signing up for the extinction path. And that's a fact.
And to put it in a government lens or
do it, girl, do it.
A governing lens.
Dial me in.
Because I totally eat up everything you're saying, no pun intended, but literally, I completely am on board with all of that. I think that through a governing lens, I think big ag, again, where the dollars are spent is what we want.
Right.
And you think about the kind of things that are funded by the federal government, what type of farming and farms are funded and get the funding. It has decimated the local agriculture.
Right.
The local farmer is decimated. And across this country, farming communities have been, vacated because it's impossible to make a living as a local small farmer. So I think that one of the things is you have to support. You have to give them a tax. You've got to give them a break. You've got to support them financially until the model from up above changes. But if you're going to say this is our priority, we want this, then you have to make it possible. You have to create that, and that it will give back to the community because every small farmer has tools that they need, machines that need fixing.
Right.
So you're creating, an economic development, a driver. You're creating an entire economy of...
It's an avenue for them to actually be able to shift.
Well, yeah, you're creating in your town all these different jobs and opportunities for businesses to come in that have all been decimated because our, local agriculture is dying. So I think that I've seen it in some places in Vermont where towns are saying, they're taking it back. They're saying, wait a minute, we want local agriculture. We're going to support it financially so that we can have multiple farms creating all this amazing, being local farms and doing what they do, and how they do it is still, completely up to them, because it's just, I think that conversation is warranted and should happen. But it's like fundamentally step number one is support them and give them the lift up to do it.
Right.
And then all of this other stuff will start coming out of that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Shine the spotlight on them. Thank you. You guys are amazing.
And how can we support you? And what do you need? And what kind of a tax break does it look like? Or what, and then see what it brings to the town and see, all of the drivers that are all of the repercussions that come from that, which would be, and I think that's what New Milford residents want. They want, a thriving farming community. And you can't do it in the context of, a big ag federal program, situation. So you've got to and that's the beautiful thing about local government is you can actually make that change locally and see what it does, and inspire more things to come out of it.
Over the past couple of years, I found what was it? I think maybe it was when we were going over the agricultural stuff and we were talking about, when I went to the town to talk about regenerative agriculture, which is a system of farming. It's not like monocrop, one crop for acres and acres and acres, or maybe two crops for acres and acres and acres. It's a system that works in harmony with earth. It's like when you look out into the forest, everything is beautiful and lush, and it doesn't need to be watered. It's the same type of theory. How do we mimic that on a larger scale so that things are regenerative, like moving, rotation, crop rotation, animal rotation, like the animals go first and then their manure and then it gets dumped in the ground and then the chickens come through. Like there's cycles and systems of being able to do things that work really well. And oh my gosh, I just lost my point. Oh, where did it go? Well, anyways, so, I found this document that was out of California, and it was how to get organic food into schools in these areas that, they just work off of big ag, whatever Cisco sends to them. Right. And there's this whole format of how to work with the local farms and what that looks like on a cost breakdown, and how to just start supplementing the schools in the local towns with the farm food from the local towns. And I'm like, this is brilliant. It's brilliant. It's sustainable. It taps into all of what we're talking about. And it's I love it. I'm like, bringing this to town council. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's possible. It
so
feels
possible.
big and, daunting. It's there for the taking. I mean, it is what people want.
Right.
It's just literally putting our dollars there and saying, let's see what this brings to our town. And I am so confident that it will bring like even unseen benefits, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. It's exciting. And it is totally what people want. I mean, I can't tell you how many people went out and bought chickens during COVID.
Right.
And
made bread and
learned how to make bread.
Yeah. And this town has a farm. We have Sullivan Farm. We have a farm.
Explain that to me. What does that mean? What do you mean we have a farm? What do you mean?
Owns a farm.
The residents?
Yes, it's our town. Our town owns that farm. So that literally could be, and I think right now it's sort of a teaching platform.
Right. Yeah,
which
they
is
make maple
wonderful.
syrup. They do a lot of
syrup.
awesome things there.
It could be, just the opportunities there are like just barely tapped, right?
A community garden, education, a lot. There's a lot. I mean, they do a ton of education. They do a lot.
But they could just, even the crops we have and sort of the amount of people that are invested there, like to come and garden, or, maybe we grow wheat and then we have I don't know. You could just really start to play with it and go in all these fun directions. But I think that the point is, we're stuck in this sort of model, suburban model of what we think we have to do is like build, develop, put up more storage units along Route 7 and, clear cut this next parcel and put up another storage space because our grand list, which affects the mill rate, we have to grow the grand list.
What does that mean?
The grand list is like all the money coming into the town from taxes.
Okay.
That's
our revenue.
Yeah, and sort of the suburban model was, develop, because that grows the grand list. And for a while, that really worked. But, once things start to break down, it doesn't work anymore because the infrastructure is all breaking and it costs more to, repair the road for the new development that has the half a mile long road that you committed to taking care of as a town. So multiply that by 25, you've got all these roads to take care of. So we're at the point where things are starting to break down. And so it's literally like that model isn't working. We need a new model. We need to invest in something that people want and that's going to bring a different paradigm, to use our word back.
Right.
So,
and that's, I think that's so important because we've only been an industrialized society for not a lot of time in the amount, in comparison to world history. So to apply old world understanding, like there are seasons for things, and if you're in a building season, that's good, or you're, and then there's like a maintenance season. You have to do things and you have to be fluid to go back to your simple complexity. What's the name of the book?
I can't.
Oh my gosh. Simply complexity.
Simple complexity.
To go back to that, it's an ecosystem, so it's dynamic, and you have to shift with it, and you have to watch the system. You have to watch the seasons and know what's coming and understand. Forethought and planning are important, and you can manage steps but not if you're being rigid and again doing the same behavior that you've always done and expect something different. Right. Like that's insanity. That's the definition of insanity.
That is the definition.
I don't want to live in an insane society anymore. I'm done.
No, which is why people should meet these new candidates. I tell you.
Let's go meet them.
Don't do the same thing.
All right, let's see. Anything else on farming that you want to talk about?
I think I would be interested in just, bringing other people into the conversation and just keep flashing, throwing ideas on the dartboard on that one.
Would love to sit with a farmer.
Yeah.
And from where I am sitting and where they're sitting and be able to get to a place like, okay, how do we come up with, we need to find the road to get here.
Right.
Like, how do you get here? What do you need? Because that's
But also to create a town where it's friendly to where if you're a person who's interested in farming and you're just starting out and you're a young person, how do we support that? How do we create? How do we create this town that is very that provides these opportunities for new young farmers to come here and do it here.
Well, and on top of that, like the urban farming, the micro farms are massive. Like we grow sprouts in my household for personal use, but I know people in the area right outside of town actually, so I'm assuming it's going to move into town at some point. Somebody's going to do this is sprouts or mushrooms and all of these other things that you can grow stupid amounts of food in a very small place and feed a lot of people, but that's a farm. And like, how do we get those in here? Because that's economics and that's sustainability. And again, it's beautiful because those foods are the most nutrient dense foods on earth. And again, like, this is not about that. We'll stay in the political realm. I'll leave.
I like putting it back and forth.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. Before we move on to our next topic, let's take a break and refresh our drinks, and
beautiful.
We will come right back. Okay?
Yes.
Cool. See you soon. Okay. All right, and we're back. Yay. All right. So that was a lot we covered and some exciting topics. And one thing that we do need to touch on is in our last podcast, we explained that we were running unaffiliated because it was not about being left or it was not about being right. It's about just moving forward. And that we really feel, I mean, the biggest voter base in the town of New Milford is unaffiliated. There's about 8,000 voters in this town that are unaffiliated. And that means that they have nothing to do. They are not affiliated with a political party, right?
Yep.
But in the United States, as we have found out since we've shot that last podcast, is that really there's a two-party system in the United States, and it is ridiculously difficult to create a movement like this without being in connection or being affiliated with a party. So what we've had to do strategically in order to get onto the ballot is actually join a party, which we have decided as a group to join the independent party. So it's like the unaffiliated party, but we're affiliated with a party that's the independent party because it's really the only one that's in the middle that makes sense. So, which is actually a little bit more exciting because if we were unaffiliated, there was going to have to be all this really ridiculous, intense work that we'd have to do. We'd all have to raise money ourselves. Right. We'd all have to run in like independent. We couldn't campaigns. Run a slate together. Like we couldn't do it as a group. There was all of these just hurdles. It was insane. That's why you never see anybody do it because it's legitimately impossible. To 99%, it's 99.9% impossible.
It's very difficult. Yes.
So to run with the independent party though now gives us a little bit more freedom to do things. Like, so we're gonna create a committee, which is cool because now the whole unaffiliated population in our town will actually have a direct group of people that they can interact with. So that's kind of what it is. We're unaffiliated running with the independent party.
What it does is it guarantees you a line on the ballot. So the unaffiliateds don't have a line on the ballot. You can petition to be on the ballot as an unaffiliated candidate, but you can't, guarantee that you're going to have a line. So we're creating a committee so that then every year there is that line on the New Milford ballot. To your point, that we will be the place for people who aren't on the right or the left and want just the committee that's focused on the town issues,
the problems,
right? The town issues, the local stuff that matters to everybody, and I think that's going to be great that we have that place.
And we have a lot of events that we've planned.
Yeah.
We have a really cool Citizens Sunday, which is going to be starting, I believe June 1st is going to be our first kickoff. So the point of that is to be able to engage with the community, probably down at Young's Field or something. We might have pizzas, some sub sandwiches, something like that, just an informal hangout where, we're just talking with each other, and what do you need, and what's your experience in the town right now, and give us feedback, like boots on the ground type of things, to go with our transparency, connection, service type of pillars that we are following right now, and to reconnect and to establish trust again in the voter in New Milford, because
and they might even be sort of, we might have a day where we have a speaker or something, or gather topics and give a lecture about it, and about like parents in the school system, or parents and teachers, or one for farmers, or we might have different constituencies and make that the topic of the day, and then try to really bring in different ideas around that.
I love it. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to talk about on there?
On getting on the ballot, you mean on the independents?
I guess so.
No, I think you've hit it all. That we're going to be a committee. We're going to have a line in New Milford for independent.
And we'll tell people what that line's going to be.
Absolutely.
So that they know.
Absolutely. Right.
Okay.
Right. And no, I think you got it.
Okay, so now I want to talk about some call to actions that everybody can really help support us with, because
well, to that point, when you're running with a party, you're backed by that whole party. So that means you're financially backed. You've got the whole setup of that party that's been in the town for a long, long time. So we're kind of starting from scratch. We don't have that backup. So we really, to get off the ground, we are going to need, we're going to need more, right? To just get off the ground.
Right. So ways that you guys can support us is going to be by finding our social media campaign accounts. Everybody's got their own personal campaign account, and then we have a committee account that you can follow all of our updates and events and all of our reels and all of our content, and you can connect with us directly on there and share your concerns and ask your questions, because we want to hear about the undertones of your experience in the town and how we can bring that into conversations like this, because this is what we want to do. It's service for you. And to Hillary's point, we are starting at the grounds level. We have no financial backing. So somewhere on these reels, you're going to see ads running. If you have the ability to give $10 donations, $20 donations, $100 donations, $1,000 donations, anything that you can contribute to this campaign, we need to have funds in order to make this move forward. It's unfortunately part of the campaign process. I wish it could just be a whole philanthropic experience, and you just get voted in because you have good morals and values and heart and you understand what's going on. But no, it does actually require financial monetization. So we do need as much donation support as possible. So if you feel in your heart that this is the campaign that you want to support, if you start to get to meet our fellow candidates and you fall in love with us, please support this campaign. It's not going to be very hard to find donation buttons. They'll soon be popping up. Well, actually, they should have already popped up. By the time this airs, they should be all over the place. So give a donation. Our heartfelt gratitude goes towards you preemptively. Be on the lookout for those events that we're going to be having soon, and we love you.
Yeah.
We really, really do.
Well said.
Cool. All right. Are we good?
Yes.
All
absolutely.
right. Till next time, lady. And actually, I think next time we're gonna have some
others,
some other faces. Yeah, that'll be good. Okay.
Great.
Awesome. High five. Nailed it. Cool. Thank you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time.